My daughter woke me up at exactly 2:13 in the morning. She wasn't crying. She wasn't sick. She simply stood beside my bed, barefoot, hugging her stuffed rabbit so tightly that its ears were bent. Her tiny voice was barely louder than a whisper. "Mom, Dad buried something in the backyard." I blinked, still half asleep. "What?" She looked toward the bedroom door before speaking again. "He told me not to tell you." Those 7 words changed my life forever. At first, I honestly believed she had dreamed it. Children imagine things. They mix dreams with reality. That's normal. But Sophie wasn't a child who invented stories. She noticed details adults ignored. If she said she saw something, she usually had. I sat up. "What exactly did you see?" She swallowed hard. "Daddy went outside after you fell asleep. He had a flashlight. He dug a hole near the old oak tree. Then he buried a black box." She hesitated. "He saw me watching through my bedroom window." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What happened then?" She lowered her eyes. "He smiled. Then he came into my room. He kissed my forehead and said, 'Princess, if Mommy ever asks, you didn't see anything tonight.' My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 40 years old. I've spent the last 16 years working as a certified public accountant. Numbers don't lie. People do. That's probably why I've always trusted spreadsheets more than promises." Jason and I had been married for 13 years. From the outside, our life looked perfect. Beautiful house, successful careers, a wonderful daughter, weekend barbecues, Christmas cards everyone envied. But appearances are often the safest place to hide the truth. Jason had changed over the past 6 months. Not dramatically. Quietly. The kind of changes you only notice when you stop making excuses. He started taking late-night phone calls outside. He suddenly cared about locking his home office. He began carrying 2 phones. When I asked why, he laughed. Work. Always work. Then there were the business trips. 3 days became 5. 5 became 7. Sometimes he'd return home exhausted. Other times, he'd come back strangely energized, like someone who'd just returned from vacation. Whenever I questioned it, he'd kiss my forehead and smile. "You're overthinking again." Maybe I was. Until that night. I looked at Sophie. She wasn't scared anymore. She looked guilty, as though she'd broken a promise. I pulled her into my arms. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "Is Daddy in trouble?" I didn't know how to answer, so I lied. "I don't know, sweetheart." She fell asleep beside me a few minutes later. I didn't. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, trying to convince myself. There had to be a simple explanation. Maybe he'd buried important documents. Maybe it was a time capsule. Maybe anything but what my imagination kept suggesting. At 7 o'clock, Jason walked into the kitchen. Fresh shower, perfect suit, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Exactly like every other morning, he smiled when he saw me. "Morning," I smiled back. "Morning." Then I noticed something. His expensive leather boots still had dried mud trapped around the soles. My heartbeat slowed, very slowly. He followed my eyes. Without saying a word, he casually placed the boots behind the kitchen island. Then he looked at Sophie. "Sleep well, princess?" She froze. For just a second, then nodded. Jason smiled. But something about that smile felt rehearsed, calculated. As he walked toward the garage, he turned around, almost casually. "Natalie, did Sophie wake you during the night?" I looked directly into his eyes. And for the first time in 13 years, I lied to my husband. "No." He smiled. "Good." Then he left for work. I waited until I heard his truck disappear down the street. Then I grabbed a shovel and walked toward the old oak tree. The morning air was cold. A thin layer of fog still covered the backyard. I stood beneath the old oak tree, holding the shovel with both hands. If Sophie had imagined everything, I'd be laughing at myself in 5 minutes. If she hadn't, my life was about to change forever. I looked around. No neighbors, no passing cars, nothing but silence. Then I noticed it. One small patch of grass looked different. The soil was darker, slightly raised, almost as if someone had tried too hard to make it look untouched. I pushed the shovel into the ground. The dirt was soft, too soft. Whoever buried something had done it recently. Every scoop made my heart beat faster. I kept telling myself to stop, to wait for Jason, to ask him directly. But deep down, I already knew something was terribly wrong. After less than 2 minutes, the metal edge of the shovel struck something hard. Clang. I froze. My breathing stopped. Slowly, I knelt down, brushed the dirt away with my hands. A black waterproof storage case appeared beneath the soil, about the size of a briefcase. No labels, no markings, just a thick combination lock. I stared at it. This wasn't a time capsule. This wasn't gardening equipment. Someone wanted this hidden. Very hidden. I carried the heavy case into the garage, closed the door, placed it on my workbench. The lock had 4 digits. I tried Jason's birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Nothing. Sophie's birthday. Nothing. Then, I remembered something. Years ago. Jason used the last 4 digits of his father's military ID for everything. I entered the numbers. Click. The lock opened. I didn't breathe. For a long moment, I simply stared. Then I slowly lifted the lid. There wasn't cash. There wasn't jewelry. There wasn't a weapon. Instead, there were neatly organized folders, a sealed envelope, a USB flash drive, 2 passports, and a stack of photographs held together with a rubber band. I picked up the passports first. One belonged to Jason. The other didn't. The photo was Jason, but the name printed underneath wasn't. David Warren. I blinked, then looked again. Same face. Different identity. What? I whispered. Is this? My hands began shaking. I opened one of the folders. Inside were bank statements, dozens of them. Accounts I'd never heard of. Different banks. Different states. Large transfers. $50,000. $100,000. $250,000. None of these accounts appeared on our tax returns. As an accountant, I knew exactly what that meant. Someone was hiding money. A lot of it. Then I reached for the photographs. The first few showed Jason at restaurants, hotels, airports. Always with the same woman. She looked to be in her early 30s. Dark hair. Confident smile. In one picture, they were holding hands. In another, they were kissing outside a beach house. I felt something break inside me. Not because he was having an affair. I think I'd already accepted that possibility months ago. What terrified me was how carefully everything had been documented. These weren't random photos. Someone had been watching them. My phone suddenly vibrated. I nearly dropped everything. Jason. Incoming call. I stared at the screen. It rang again. Then again. Finally, I answered. Hey, his voice sounded unusually calm. Just checking on you. I forgot something. What? My black toolbox. I looked around the garage. It's still here. Good. There was a brief pause. Then he asked, almost casually, Sophie didn't say anything strange this morning, did she? Every instinct inside me screamed to tell the truth. Instead, I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. No. Another pause. Then he laughed softly. Good. I'll be home early tonight. The call ended. I slowly lowered the phone. He wasn't calling about the toolbox. He was checking whether his secret was still buried. And suddenly, I realized something even more frightening. If Jason was hiding all of this, what was on the USB drive? I looked down at the small silver flash drive resting inside the case. Something told me, opening it would be the point of no return. I carried the USB drive into my home office. For nearly 10 minutes, I simply stared at it. Every instinct told me to stop, to close the laptop, to put everything back exactly where I'd found it. Because once I knew the truth, there would be no going back. Finally, I plugged it in. One folder appeared on the screen. Its name was only one word. Exit. My stomach tightened. I clicked it. Inside were dozens of files, scanned passports, property deeds, bank transfers, insurance policies. Every file had been carefully labeled, every detail perfectly organized. Jason had planned this. Not for days, not for weeks, for years. One document caught my attention. Departure timeline. I opened it. At the top was a date, exactly 17 days from now. Below it, a checklist. Sell investment account. Close business partnership. Transfer offshore funds. Final passport ready. New driver's license collected. House insurance updated. Natalie policy confirmed. I stopped reading. Natalie policy? I opened the attachment beside it. Life insurance. My name. Natalie Carter. Coverage, $2 million. Issue date, 3 months ago. Beneficiary, Jason Carter. I couldn't breathe. I had never signed these papers. Not knowingly. My hands trembled as I opened the next file. There it was. My electronic signature. Perfect. Every curve, every letter. Except, I had never seen this document before. Someone had copied my signature, or forged it. As an accountant, I knew exactly how serious that was. This wasn't just betrayal. This was fraud. Then I found a folder called New Life. Inside were photographs. A beach house in Belize, a luxury apartment in Portugal, a marina, a white sailboat, reservations, flight confirmations, the second passport. Everything pointed toward one thing. Jason wasn't planning an affair. He was planning to disappear. Forever. Then I noticed something strange. There was one video file. No title. No description. Just a date. Curiosity 1. I clicked play. The camera was inside a hotel room. Jason sat across from the same woman from the photographs. She smiled. "So, are you finally going to tell your wife?" Jason laughed. "No! If everything goes according to plan, I'll never have to." She frowned. "What about Natalie?" He shrugged. "She'll be financially taken care of. I've already handled the insurance." The woman smiled. "So after 17 days, we're free." Jason leaned back. Completely. Then he laughed. "You'd be surprised how easy it is to disappear when everyone believes you're an honest family man." The video ended. I stared at the screen, unable to move, unable to think. The man I'd shared 13 years with had recorded himself planning a new life while sitting across the dinner table from me every night. I was about to unplug the USB drive when another file caught my eye. Sophie's drawings. Confused, I opened it. Inside were scanned pictures my daughter had drawn over the last year. Rainbows, our house, birthday cards, family portraits. One drawing made my blood run cold. It showed Jason standing beneath the old oak tree, holding a shovel, next to a black box. At the bottom, Sophie's childish handwriting read, "Daddy says secrets keep families safe." Tears filled my eyes. Jason hadn't just lied to me. He had involved our daughter. He had taught a 7-year-old to keep dangerous secrets from her own mother. That hurt more than every fake passport, more than every hidden bank account, more than every photograph. Because once a parent teaches a child that lying is love, the damage doesn't end with one marriage. It follows them for years. I closed the laptop, took one long breath, and made the hardest decision of my life. I wasn't going to confront Jason. Not yet. Because now, I knew something he didn't. He believed his secret was still buried. He believed I was still the trusting wife he'd manipulated for 13 years. He had no idea. The countdown had already begun. But this time, I was the one controlling the clock. 17 days passed faster than I expected. Jason became happier. He whistled while making coffee. He played with Sophie more than usual. He even brought me flowers one evening. Red roses. My favorite. The irony almost made me laugh. A man preparing to disappear forever was suddenly pretending to be the perfect husband. On the 17th morning, Jason kissed Sophie on the forehead. "I'll be back late tonight, princess." She smiled. "Okay, Daddy." Then he looked at me. "I have one last business meeting. I'll probably be home after midnight." I smiled warmly. "Drive safely." He walked out the front door, completely unaware that he would never sleep in this house again. The moment his truck disappeared around the corner, my phone rang. It was David. "It's time." Within 20 minutes, 3 vehicles quietly pulled into our driveway. David stepped out first. Behind him were 2 investigators from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. One of the investigators held a thick folder. "Mrs. Carter, we're ready." I packed only what Sophie and I truly needed. Family photographs, her favorite stuffed rabbit, a few clothes, important documents. Everything else could be replaced. Peace couldn't. Before leaving, I stood in the living room one last time. 13 years. Birthdays. Christmas mornings. Family movie nights. I wasn't saying goodbye to a house. I was saying goodbye to the lie I'd been living. At exactly 7:42 p.m., Jason arrived at a private airfield outside Nashville. The investigators had been watching him all day. He parked his truck, removed a black duffel bag from the back seat. Inside were the second passport, nearly $300,000 in cash, a one-way ticket, and the same black storage case he believed still held every secret. He walked confidently toward a small charter aircraft. Halfway there, someone called his name. "Mr. Carter." Jason turned. 4 federal agents stepped forward, badges visible. One agent spoke calmly. Or should we say, David Warren? Jason didn't run. He couldn't. He simply stood there, staring at the passport in his own hands. The life he'd spent years planning ended in less than 30 seconds. The investigation lasted months. It turned out Jason had been moving money through shell companies, using false identities, and filing fraudulent financial documents for years. The affair had been real, but it wasn't the reason he'd been leaving. The woman in the photographs was helping him disappear. His plan had never included coming back. The life insurance policy was declared fraudulent. Every forged document became evidence. Every hidden account was traced. Every fake identity collapsed. Not because I exposed him publicly, because I chose the law instead of revenge. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. The judge looked at me and smiled gently. "Mrs. Carter, I hope this chapter brings you peace." I smiled back. "It already has." Sophie adjusted better than I expected. Children don't need perfect parents. They need honest ones. One afternoon, we planted a young maple tree, exactly where the old oak tree had stood. As we covered the roots with fresh soil, Sophie looked up at me. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart? Are we burying secrets?" I knelt beside her. "No. What are we burying?" I smiled. "The past." She thought for a moment, then carefully placed a small handwritten note beneath the tree. I asked what it said. She grinned. "It's a promise." "What promise?" "That nobody in this family will ever have to whisper the truth again." I felt tears fill my eyes. Not because I was sad, because for the first time in a very long time, I knew we were going to be okay. A year later, I drove past the old house one last time. Another family lived there now. Children were playing in the backyard. The maple tree we'd planted had already begun to grow. Life had moved on, and so had we. People often ask me, when I finally stopped loving Jason. The truth is, love didn't disappear overnight. Trust did. And once trust is buried, no amount of apologies can make it bloom again. If my daughter hadn't whispered those 7 words, I might have spent the rest of my life loving a man who was already planning to erase me from his future. Sometimes, the smallest voice in the house is the one that saves everyone.